This is the Locked On Jets podcast. I'm your host, John B. from gangreennation.com, coming at you with a bonus episode because Thursday morning, The Athletic published a bombshell article detailing the dysfunction behind the scenes in the New York Jets franchise. In particular, the erratic leadership being provided by owner Woody Johnson. A number of just absolutely crazy stories about what's going on behind the scenes at the New York Jets facility. Now, of course, this is not the first time The Athletic has chronicled what's going on with the New York Jets. It feels like every couple of weeks there's a new article with new stories about all of the craziness happening in Florham Park. And I think there's a portion of the fan base that here's the Athletics published a new story about the Jets, and they just dismiss it. They think these stories can't be real. It's got to be fake. I think that's difficult to believe with this particular article for two reasons. First of all, the stories just keep piling up. We've gotten to the point where nobody can make up this much. I mean, I don't think Aaron Sorkin could come up with all the stories that The Athletic has given us over the last couple of months about the behind-the-scenes antics happening at the Jets team facility. But the second reason I think it's difficult to dismiss is that the Jets had a spokesperson comment on this article, and this spokesperson kind of confirmed a lot of the stories The Athletic's been running with. So the Jets are telling you a lot of this stuff actually has a basis in fact. So if the Jets are telling you that, a lot of it's got to be true. Now, most of the focus is on one particular aspect of the story, and we're going to get to that in a bit, about how Woody Johnson apparently vetoed a trade for a wide receiver because his rating in the video game Madden was not high enough. We'll get to that in a bit, but I think all of the focus on the admittedly crazy Madden aspect of the article has kind of led people to ignore something that might be a little bit more significant. And that's the role Woody Johnson's two teenage sons, Brick and Jack, have on the team's decision-making. Now, this is the Athletics, not the first publication to note this. There have been a couple of rumors in the media that Woody Johnson's two teenage sons are driving a lot of the Jets' decisions. But this was interesting. Now, it quoted Joe Douglas as saying behind the scenes, "I answered to a teenager before the season," indicating the power that Woody Johnson's sons have. There was another executive who was quoted as saying, "When we're discussing things, you'll hear Woody cite something that Brick or Jack read online that's being weighed equally against whatever opinion someone else in the department has." That's obviously interesting. That's obviously newsworthy. But then a Jets spokesperson commented on the record and about the influence Brick and Jack have sending their father information that their father eventually uses. The spokesperson said, "It's used as a reference point. It's not determinative." So it's used so the stuff that Brick and Jack Johnson are sending their father, when their father makes decisions, he uses that as a reference point. The Jets are admitting this is true. The Jets aren't denying it. The Jets aren't ignoring this. A Jets spokesperson just told us that this happens. This is true. The Jets, this is not the Athletic making something up. This is the Athletic reporting something, and then the Jets telling you, "Yeah, that's true. Brick and Jack, they're influencing their father. It's just what they tell their father doesn't always happen." The spokesperson continues, "It's really sad that an adult would use a misleading anecdote about teenagers to make their father look bad. It's ridiculous, quite honestly, the idea that this was used to influence the opinion of experienced professionals. The Suns have no roles in the organization. It's completely ridiculous to suggest that any outside info is intended to replace the opinions of Woody Johnson's staff." The problem, though, is that he started off by saying the stuff that Brick and Jack Johnson are sending their father is used as a reference point for Woody's decisions. And then essentially what he says after that is, "Yeah, but that doesn't mean that Woody's going to make the decision that they want to do. Woody's only considering what they tell him." And then the spokesman goes on and says, "Well, they don't have a job in the organization. They're just giving the father their opinion." These are teenagers who are influencing Jets' decision. The spokesman said, Brick and Jack Johnson are saying stuff to Woody, and Woody's considering it when Woody makes decisions. And there's nothing wrong with that. The spokesman saying, "There's nothing wrong with that." I can't believe the Jets actually admitted that this happens. It's tough to believe. Maybe it's not tough to believe, given the way the Jets operate and the way Woody Johnson operates, that his two teenage sons are actually playing a role in his decisions. It's crazy that the Jets organization's admitting this is true and then acting like, "What's wrong with that?" Because that's essentially what the Jets spokesman told us. And this tells us a lot about why the Jets struggle so much. It's not specific to the two sons of Woody Johnson. Now, one thing I want to make clear here is I'm criticizing Woody Johnson. If you work with somebody who's supposed to be a professional, let's say you work in an office with somebody, and this guy's been, at his job for 2 decades, like Woody Johnson's been the owner of the Jets for 2 decades. If this guy's teenage sons give him bad advice for something to do at the office and he does it, I'm not blaming the teenage sons. I'm blaming him, because why would you listen to teenagers when you're supposed to be a professional? So this is all criticism of Woody Johnson. But I think it speaks to something deeper. It speaks to the culture of dysfunction within the Jets franchise, because I think sometimes people see like one thing they agree with Woody Johnson on, and they use it to defend him. So, for example, this article mentions that Woody Johnson did not like when the Jets drafted Christian Hackenberg. So I think some fans will look at that and they'll say, "Well, see, Woody was right about that. Woody's not that bad. He disagreed with the Jets drafting Christian Hackenberg." The problem is that when you have a boss who creates a culture of dysfunction, it doesn't exonerate him when he's right about something. You can be a bad boss and be right about something here or there. You can get certain things right. The issue is that when you create a culture of dysfunction, people aren't working together for the same goal. And that's necessary in an NFL team. An NFL front office, everybody needs to be focused on the task at hand. Everybody needs to work together well. Everybody needs to trust each other. And when you have stuff like this, and this is not the only issue, the article goes into a lot of other details about the culture of dysfunction Woody creates, and how Woody's constantly meddling, how Woody's sticking himself in decisions that, he doesn't belong in. And the issue is that within a culture of dysfunction, everybody's not working together. If your office is dysfunctional, your boss might be right about a decision or two, but that doesn't mean your office works together well. It doesn't mean your office accomplishes what it needs to accomplish. In the NFL, you need to put together a quality 53-man roster. You need to scout well. You need to run your salary cap effectively. You need coaches who buy into the program. You need coaches who can train the players. You need coaches who can develop the players. And that requires everybody to work together. It requires all the pieces to fit. It requires harmony and cohesion. And when the owner's going in and just messing up, the owner's going in and inserting himself into crazy decisions, the owner's listening to bad advisors like his teenage sons, it creates a culture where you can't build a winner. And this transcends any one decision Woody Johnson makes. And by the way, if anybody's going to defend Woody Johnson's football knowledge, what do you have to say about just listen to his comments over the last year? About 10 months ago, when he was telling us all the Jets needed was a quarterback. The Jets were ready to go to the Super Bowl if they had a quarterback. How about 5 games into the season when he changed his mind and he told us Robert Saleh had to go and Jeff Ulbrich will provide the team a spark? How about after the Devontae Adams trade, when he said this team's going to start dominating? And by the way, Devontae Adams has been great and the team hasn't dominated. The team's 4-10, which tells you all you needed to know about his assessment of that team. How, Devontae Adams was not the last piece of the puzzle, because Devontae Adams could not have been better and the team's still 4-10. This itself, the fact that Woody Johnson's listening to his kids when he makes decisions, that's a problem. That's a big problem. The fact that the Jets are admitting that this is happening and acting like it's no big deal is crazy, but it speaks to something deeper. It speaks to an owner who doesn't understand how to put people in position to succeed. It speaks to an owner whose job should be make sure the people that I have everything that they need to do their job effectively. Make sure everybody's focused. Make sure there's harmony in the room. Make sure everybody's working well together. Instead, he's bringing in crazy ideas from the outside. And this is a microcosm as to why this organization is having so much trouble and has had so much trouble over the last decade and a half. Woody Johnson's sons are influencing his decision. We now have it. This is not the first time we've heard it. First time the Jets have actually confirmed that Woody Johnson's sons are influencing his decisions. Confirmed by the Jets. I mean, read the article. That's what he did. The spokesman essentially said, "Of course, it's happening. It's a reference. What Woody's sons tell him is a reference point. It's just not a big deal. That doesn't have anything to do with what we're doing." Unbelievable. Well, speaking of unbelievable, yes, we need to talk about the Madden aspect of this story. Is Woody Johnson using a video game to evaluate players? We've got to explore that as we continue here on this Thursday edition of Locked On Jets. This special edition of Locked On Jets is brought to you by the College Football Playoff on TNT. It's that time of year. The College Football Playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports' coverage of the College Football Playoff begins December 21st, starting with the College Football Playoff Kickoff Show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the College Football Playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Today's episode of Locked On Jets is also brought to you by Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Well, our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, and The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Maybe Woody Johnson should take a course at Hillsdale College instead of playing Madden. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register, hillsdale.edu/lockedon. This is the Locked On Jets podcast here on this Thursday, a special bonus episode about a bombshell article that came out from The Athletic. The Jets seem to be part of a lot of these Athletic articles. And, Jets fans get mad at the publication. Well, maybe the Jets should stop giving them so much material to work with. And this article, the thing that's drawn the most attention is a part of it which discusses Woody Johnson using the Madden NFL video game as a rationale to veto a trade for Broncos wide receiver Jerry Jeudy. Last offseason, the Broncos were looking to trade Jeudy, and the report is that the Jets were on the verge of working out a trade. But it says that Joe Douglas apparently told the Broncos that Johnson did not want to make the trade because the owner felt Judy's player rating in Madden NFL, the popular video game, was not high enough, according to league sources. Of course, Jeudy ended up going to Cleveland, and he's now over the 1,000-yard mark with 3 games to go. It also indicates that the topic of Madden came up when the Jets were looking to sign John Simpson, who, of course, they got this year from the Baltimore Ravens. And it mentions that Woody was concerned with Simpson's awareness level on Madden. And this is like one of the stories of the NFL. And the problem for the Jets is like they have been such a mess, and the leadership of this franchise has been so erratic that you can't totally dismiss it. I mean, it sounds crazy, but Woody Johnson doesn't really know anything about evaluating players. So going to Madden, the ratings there, is it possible he did it? Unfortunately, I mean, I don't think you can rule it out. But the article also talks about some of the other things he did that were, I think, a little bit more damaging. Some of this stuff is kind of silly, like the Madden stuff, but they ultimately did sign John Simpson, who's been very successful. And the good news is that John Simpson's Madden rating is going up. And if you want Jerry Jeudy after a 1,000-yard season, I'm sure his Madden rating is going up. So if he's available again this offseason, I'm sure Woody will happily sign off on trading for him. Whenever those rankings come out. But there were things that I think were more damaging that came out in this article. One of them was that it was widely reported in the offseason that the Jets had a number of senior people in their front office depart. And this was something that came up like after Joe Douglas was fired, how much it frustrated Joe Douglas. But the report indicates Woody would not replace these guys. And, that goes to like, are you investing in your team? And I'm not suggesting that like Joe Douglas was a great general manager, because if you listen to the show, I think that there were many flaws in the way he operated, but that's like a fundamental question. You get rid of like senior executives, get rid of people who are high ranking officials on your team, and you don't replace them. Now, the team spokesman made a comment denying that. He said the open role was used to reorganize the staff. The notion that you didn't want the position replaced was untrue. The responsibilities were filled by employees who deserved promotions. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? So yeah, we didn't replace these guys. We just gave the responsibilities to other people who deserve promotions. Why didn't they get the new titles then? I don't know. But another thing that this kind of stuck out to me, and this is probably like the least explosive aspect of this, but it might be like the best window into like Woody Johnson's flaws. It mentioned that the Jets did not hire officials for training camp, which is a very standard practice in the NFL. Like I've been to training camp I've been to training camps a number of years. I've always seen officials there. And the article notes that, the Jets have had penalty issues all year. Now, nobody would rightly say that the reason the Jets have so many penalty issues is because there were no officials at training camp. I think by week 16, that ceases to be a valid excuse for the Jets committing so many penalties. But I'm sure it didn't help lacking it because officials will throw flags when they see a penalty in training camp. I bet at these practices. It's one of those things that helps you prepare, helps you realize what you can get away with, what you can't get away with. It's a little thing. And I think this is one of the issues with the Jets. You see this like every week. You see something that's not quite right with this franchise. And people say, well, that's not a big deal. And you're right. Like any of these little things doesn't really make a difference alone. But it's like drip by drip. The water adds up in the bucket, and eventually the bucket tips over. Eventually, the little things do make a difference if there are enough of them. And it's just like those small little issues. We don't have officials at training camp, so now our players aren't preparing optimally because they don't, an offensive lineman can't get used to what's going to get called on him in a game. A defensive back can't get used to how much contact he can make down the field. Just little things like that. Or, not replacing guys who leave in the front office. Any individual executive, do they make that big of a difference? No, but enough of them leave. And there are like hundreds of these other little things that happen with this franchise, and people dismiss them. And I don't blame people for dismissing them because these are like small issues. They're small issues that alone don't make a big difference. But Woody's never focused on the little things. Woody's never focused on making this thing run effectively. He's never focused on the under the radar aspects of these things. He dismisses them. And it doesn't work in the NFL. It doesn't work in a league where you have a 53-man roster, where you have 22 starters, where you have a big coaching staff. In the NBA, one player makes a big difference. This big splashy move changes everything for your franchise. If you can get the superstar player. The NFL, in a league where you have 22 starters and a 53-man roster, one big move doesn't necessarily change everything. And that's the big problem with the New York Jets under Woody Johnson. That they always think that they're one move away from something special. They always think they're one move away from the promised land. In the NFL, you need to build a sturdy structure. And it's not something Woody Johnson's ever shown himself to be interested in. Now, there are lots of areas where Woody is just completely in over his head and incompetent. He's never shown any curiosity in how an NFL team functions effectively. He's never developed a philosophy on building a successful football franchise. And you can see just like the sources he listens to. He listens to his kids. The Jets confirmed it. I can't believe the Jets actually admitted that was the case. And he's listening to Madden. But the bigger issues here are the more mundane. Just the Jets not taking care of the small details. And you don't really notice them in the moment. You dismiss them in the moment, but they show up on the field on Sundays. And they've shown up on the field on Sundays this year and in many of the previous 13 years. Anyway, that's all for our special edition of Locked On Jets. Tune in Friday for our regular show. We'll talk more. We'll probably talk more about Woody Johnson. We'll certainly try and get you ready for Jets Rams. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. We'll chat again tomorrow.